You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find. Welcome to the One More for the Good Guys podcast, where good guys gather to shed light on the good life, the people, and the good things that make it that way. I'm Mike McGill with my co-host, Jamie Akins. Now, raise your glass, lend us your ear, and let's have one more for the good guys. You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man. Hey, everybody. One more for the good guys. McGill Billy here.
And I'm Jamie.
We're with our good and longtime friend, Mr. Alan Mills, all the way from...
Alan Sims.
Shit.
There you go.
Alan Sims. Golly. We're going to have to take that out. Son of a bitch.
No,
we don't edit.
Funny.
We don't edit anything.
But you know why I said Alan Mills?
I do not. I don't know Alan Mills.
Alan Mills was a singer for a bluegrass group back in the day called The Lost and Found. Mm. And he was one of my absolute favorite singers of that old guard.
Right.
And I don't know.
It just came from... Sometimes that happens, just like it's lodged back in there and things just come out.
It doesn't make me feel any better. I hope it didn't hurt your feelings.
I'm not leaving.
Pretty,
so we're good.
Well, good. But Alan has been a longtime friend and a contributor to the music scene around here with some of his writings and publications, as well as someone who we tried to have on the show back in the winter, and then we got the big snowstorm and all that stuff happened, and then one of us was out of town, and just one thing or another. But through all those difficulties and all those reschedulings, we got Alan Sims with us today.
And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. Tell us a little bit about your website and what you're writing on now. Plug anything you got coming up or anything anybody needs to go check out.
All right. Well, I'm glad you threw that out there at the beginning, because I listened to Rusty's broadcast or the podcast, and good Lord, you guys, when you talk about sports and the NBA, I'm like in awe. And I thought, if I come on and they say, well, what's your all-time best NBA team?
No.
I'm going to throw up, because I probably couldn't name a full team. I mean, it'd be lost. So, I do insideofknoxville.com, and I've done it now for this summer marks 14 years.
14, no kidding.
It's been a ride at this point.
It really has.
Right after Rusty started Blank, year or so. And, my wife and I moved downtown in 2009, and we thought downtown was like awesome. And it's like we were going down there any chance we got. And we'd pretty much been doing that. I've lived in Knoxville since 82. Lived in South Knoxville first and moved around a little bit. But I always found stuff downtown. And I know people talk about how vacant it was and all that, but there was always something. I mean, there was a blues series I remember at the Bijou that I loved. Coco Taylor came a lot, and Clarence Gatemouth Brown came, and just
Taj Mahal.
Mm-hmm, that's right. I saw Taj Mahal in that series. So I think that was the late 80s, maybe early 90s. Yeah. So there was stuff happening. And of course, Eligaroos and that kind of thing. And so we were going down there. So 9, we moved down. And then 10, I was kind of frustrated, because if I ever said anything on social media about downtown, people are like, oh man, that's dangerous down there. You don't go down there. It's nasty. It's dirty. Why are you and I'm thinking, that's not how I feel about it. So I was talking to a writer friend of mine one night, Deborah Wiles, a children's writer. And it's sometime early morning, and we were drinking wine and eating chocolate cake, as you are wont to do at 2 a.m. or so. And she said, well, you ought to write it. And I said, well, what you talking about? I mean, how would I write? I don't have a newspaper or anything. I'm not Rusty, Odom, big tycoon of the print media. And she said, you just do a blog. and I didn't know what that was. So that's what started it. So a month or so later, I started just writing about stuff I saw downtown. It was really pretty lame at first.
Yeah.
For, a couple years, probably. It was just silly stuff I saw, but it was just kind of to get the word out that downtown's okay. There's fun stuff happening. There's interesting people, some of them housed and some of them not, but just a lot of interesting people. And so I started writing about it. And it's kind of hard to imagine that now because, the Knox News and the television stations, they can't get enough of downtown.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking how times have changed.
Yeah, remarkably so. So that's what started it. And pretty much there's been no big revolution at any point. There was a little bit. There was an evolution, I would say. I'm a pretty serious guy. And so it was, probably not 6 weeks into my writing that I thought, I got to write about homelessness because that's one of the, that's the reality of downtown too, So I wrote a 3-part series on homelessness and interviewed some people and that kind of thing. And then weirdly, one of the big turning points was that August, I started in June. In August, there was a big neo-Nazi march downtown. Massive. And the guys had all their swastikas
what year was that?
on.
You remember?
10.
Yeah, okay.
August of 10. And, they had the full uniforms. I mean, it was scary. They came pouring in from Michigan and Ohio. I watched them roll in and it was very few Tennessee plates, but, it was interesting. And the state was I guess, nervous about it. So they had sent militia down here.
Yeah.
And they were armed vehicles and stuff. I've never seen anything like that in Knoxville streets before or since, So it was pretty scary, pretty chilling. And there was a big debate in the community. Do we counter protest or is that just giving them attention? Do we just ignore them and let them, whimper their way back home? And so there was a mix of both. There were some people who counter demonstrated and so forth. But that was a turning point for my website because I took hundreds of pictures probably.
Right.
And I wrote about it. I wrote probably 5 or 6 different articles about it, none of which were probably what I would write today.
Right.
But people saw it and I started getting comments like, you covered this better than the News Sentinel covered this and so on it went. And, from there, I realized that I had an audience that I didn't really anticipate.
Right.
I thought maybe a couple dozen people would read,
Sure.
Which would have been cool. But, that's when it really kind of took off. And so then since then, I guess I try to, I consider it kind of a love letter to Knoxville in a way, but also an honest one. Cities, I love cities, Knoxville being, where I've chosen to make my home. And cities are complicated.
Yeah.
Just like people are.
Yeah.
So I hope to write about all the complications, all the joy, all the great stuff. And there's a lot of that, but there's also the other stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah. Well, now, so you're originally from the Gulf Coast, you said.
Yep. Bayou boy.
Louisiana?
No, actually, the second largest. I'm going to get nerdy on you a second.
That's
okay.
We
do nerdy for a minute?
Sure.
So the second largest.
We had Rusty Odom on here for God's sake.
He's just goofy, though. I don't know about nerdy. Just maybe goofy.
You heard that.
Yeah, good. So the second largest delta in the United States of America is in South Alabama.
Okay.
And it's all around the Mobile River and Mobile Bay, right down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I'm from. My dad was from Louisiana. So gotcha. I guess I get a little bit of both of it.
Well, I guess when we were talking earlier, you had said that about your dad, and when you said Louisiana, I just went with it.
No, he was from Louisiana, so I grew up going back to Louisiana all the time, an LSU fan at the time, and just we went to some games in Baton Rouge and that sort of thing. We went to New Orleans a lot. Right. And I credit those trips with really kind of turning me on to cities.
Right.
We didn't have a lot of money, but we could go over to New Orleans for the day. Drive home at the end of the night, and I fell in love with New Orleans. That was my first city that I really loved.
So growing up down there, what did you do? Were you like any other bayou kid, fish and
we
run
fished
the woods
a lot.
and
the
swamps and
friends
whatnot?
who had boats and we went out a lot. And my grandmother, I fished a lot with my grandmother. She was a great lady. She lived to be 89 and did whatever she wanted to till about the time she died. But yeah, we'd fish a lot. That was her favorite thing in the world to do.
What was her name?
Her name was Helen Watley. Mamaw.
Here's the Mamaw.
Here's the Mamaw.
Cheers. There's something to that, isn't there?
There is.
My mom's 86, and she's still, thank God, she still got her faculties and her wit and her sharpness. And
precious. That is precious.
Yeah. So.
My Mamaw was that way. She lived to be 89. She drove all around Mobile County until a couple months before she died, probably.
Wow.
Had her wits about her. I went back there for Thanksgiving about 3 weeks before she died, and she made a big old vat of gumbo, which was our family's kind of love language.
Sure.
Gumbo. And so she made that gumbo, and it was awesome. And I talked with her after it at night, and I could just tell in her eyes that she was going away. I could just, and I left there crying and said, that's the last time I'll see my Mamaw. And she died 3 weeks later. Yeah. But she was still,
premonition
upright doing her thing. Yeah. But you could just tell, sometimes you can tell the light has gone out in somebody's eyes,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
They're just kind of ready.
Yeah.
And she was ready. She had done her thing and ready to go.
Yeah.
So not sure how we got on that.
Well,
I did grow up.
It doesn't matter.
Grew up on the beach and the bayous, just kind of all of that.
Yeah.
Beach was right there.
Now, was writing something or photography or any of that stuff was stuff you did in school or?
Writing. That's the thread that runs through it for me.
Right.
I wrote from probably like thinking aspirationally, thinking that I would do something with it from probably 7th grade on.
Right.
You asked me in 7th grade, what are you going to do? I'd say be a writer. Of course, what I meant was real different than what I wound up doing.
Right.
Because this didn't exist.
Sure.
This world. But I was voted most likely to succeed. And the reason is not because I was smart or good looking, which of course was true, but because people thought I was going to be a successful singer-songwriter.
Oh, no kidding.
Because that was what I wanted to write was songs, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about it. My hero was, first hero was Hank Williams, hands down.
Yeah.
I loved him when I was a little kid. As a little kid, we went to the Grand Ole Opry. Again, just like strap everybody in the car and go and stay in a cheap hotel and see all these incredible, see Roy Acuff, for goodness sakes,
Was the hayride going on at that time?
To the Louisiana hayride? Yeah. So my dad went to the Louisiana hayride growing up and actually saw Hank Williams.
Wow.
Yeah. I never, of course, got to see Hank. He died, I guess, about 8 years before I was born. But yeah, just seeing Roy Acuff and just all those original Opry people. Yeah. I guess not original. It goes way back. But this was the 60s. So, a lot of those old guys were still alive.
Sure.
And that was amazing. That sort of changed my life, I'd say. So I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, but the singing really didn't come to me. So that was a problem. And the writing of tunes didn't really come to me. So that was a second problem.
Right.
So I was left with kind of words. And I think that's kind of where I went.
Well, that's part of it, though. It's... You either have a peanut butter sandwich or you have the peanut butter and the jelly or, somebody brings you the jelly, somebody, so that's part of it. I know I was listening to a thing with Jim Lauderdale the other day on Otis Gibbs had it on his YouTube channel, and he was talking about a guy he wrote with, and I would get it completely wrong if I try to remember this fellow's name, but at any rate, he was basically a writer and more of a lyricist than anything, and but was good friends with Grateful Dead and helped write a bunch of their stuff too. Wow. And he and Jim got to be friends, and there was a little stretch of time there, if you remember, or anybody out there can remember, that it seemed like Jim Lauderdale was putting out a damn record every other day.
Yeah, a string there.
Yeah, and it was just like, what's going on? Well, come to find out, and this isn't knocking Jim in any way,
but he had this guy as a lyricist. So he would come up with melodies and send him, hey, check this out. And this was in the days of cassette tapes and U.S. Postal Service and all,
right.
There wasn't sound files and edits and clips and all that stuff. But at any rate, it's, that's, I guess, a long way. That's a part of it.
I still marvel at people like yourself who come up with melodies, because to me, there are only so many notes. There's only so many
right.
chords, and we've been doing this for a long time now.
Yeah. I always say that, in a lot of ways, there's only X amount of notes. There's only these many chords, but the way those things can intertwine, but there's also lots of similarities too,
they're inevitably.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Might be a little different, but really.
I remember somebody saying something about Tom T. Hall on that front. It said, his melodies are great. Both of them.
Yeah. The old storyteller.
He was phenomenal, but words were clearly his thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Very much so. I was a big Tom T fan. I got to meet him one time.
Oh, wow.
Actually sit across from him while we were at kind of a dinner, and interesting guy.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. He was
smart guy.
Very smart, very observant.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he probably would have been a good baseball player, because he would have been, you couldn't get anything by him. That he had the eye. He was aware. His awareness was
right.
And he must have had a big giant brain too, because he had a head that was this big around. He had this giant head. But any rate, he was a real gentleman and a nice guy. But man, I spent a lot of time listening to Tom T. Hall, those songs, and it never fails. If R.B. Morris and I ever get together, we always wind up somewhere on Tom T. Hall. And,
right.
He has got his favorites, and of course I've got mine. Of course, they're all of our favorites.
Right.
He and I like, but yeah, it takes that. I got stuff that's unfinished. I got stuff that I've rolled around. I've got melodies for stuff, and it just seems like it might be just as easy to go build a spaceship than to write something that makes sense or makes me happy. I don't know. What is that about writers that there's something there that gives you that completion satisfaction?
You feel like this is done. I don't know. I'd never,
whether it be song or anything.
Yeah, I could do it with lyrics. I could do lyrics and feel like, okay, that's pretty good. But then I'd sit down with my guitar and it's like, I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah.
I just got nothing. It was all, I could just never come up with very interesting melodies, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway, I drifted from that to, I wrote poetry for a while, wrote short stories. I wrote a novel that, never saw the light of day. Thank God, the world is a better place. And then, just sort of fell into this. This is not what I expected.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
Where'd you go to school?
So college or just whatever. Yeah.
Wherever you want to go.
So I went to a private Christian school.
Okay.
In my youth. And, we could talk about the Bible. I don't read it anymore, but I could tell you some things about it.
That's good. We're both in that same regard.
I went up, I grew up very fundamentalist and doing that. It came time for college, and I wanted to go to LSU because I liked their football team. That was clear. And their campus looked like they had a lot of fun, and they do. And I applied, and my parents, I don't know that they even knew that. And I got a scholarship offer, and it was looking good. And they were freaking out because, like, LSU, they knew enough about it to know this is not going to be good for him. And they were probably right looking back on it. So they offered me a car. They said, well, we'll give you a car, but we can't afford that if you go to LSU, only if you go to the local Baptist college.
Right.
So I took the car.
Yeah.
Told my mom, I said, told my dad to tell my mom because I couldn't do it to her straight. I said, you tell her I'm going to do this for a year because that's what the deal is. I get the car if I do it for a year and then I'm quitting because I never liked school much.
Yeah.
And I was working at a grocery store. So I was making money.
Right.
I mean, the money was rolling into me. Those tips, 25 cents at a time, I was rolling in. I had plenty of money to put gas in the car and buy a little weed along the way. And
you had your independence.
Yeah. What did I need with college, right?
Yeah.
And then I got into college and fell in love with learning. I loved ideas. I loved talking to smart people. I loved just talking to people who weren't quite like the people I grew up with, who were different. So I wound up graduating there, and
I had something similar, just an interaction today.
Oh yeah,
that made me think about that very thing. Was the things I've done, places I've been, people I've gotten to speak to, and how in the world did I ever make it out of here to one of those kind of degrees?
Right.
But any rate.
So I got to be a senior, and I had a professor, thank goodness for people in your life, who come along when you need them.
Yeah.
He asked me, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I said,
timing.
I'm going to get a job. I mean, that's what you do. You go to college, you get a degree of whatever sort, and you get a job. He laughed at me. He said, your degree's in psychology. What do you think you're going to do with that?
Right.
I said, I don't know. I just figured there was something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my parents had not gone to college until about the same time I did. My mom went to it. So I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anything about education.
Right.
And so he told me to go. He said, get in your car, take your wife, because I was married by then, and go to the University of Florida and meet this guy that I know. So I did, and the guy was the head of the counseling department at the University of Florida. So we moved down there, thank goodness, because it changed our lives. And not so much, well, I guess the university, but just more seeing different parts of the world, seeing different kinds of people.
Different cultures.
I mean, we lived in married student housing with all the roaches and everything else that entailed, and no air conditioning in the Florida summer. And we had people from all over the world all around us, and hearing different languages, smelling different foods cooking that I'd never smelled before. It was mind expanding. It was a real growth period for us. It nearly killed us. We nearly starved to death, but we grew up.
Yeah.
So that's where I wound up there. And I eventually went back to UT and got a degree as well. So I'm not completely a Gator. In my heart, I am probably, but I have a UT degree, if that helps.
Easy.
If it helps.
Easy.
Just saying.
Easy. I like you. Well, I think that's, we've talked about it on here several times. We won't get way deep in the weeds on it, but I think that was one of the biggest things about being in a lot of in the high school I went to in particular, being rural and stuff, is if there would have been, I don't know if we would have got the right guidance or the person to.
I got none in high school.
I mean, we didn't. I wouldn't have. I was in love with music, so I did everything there was to do. I took every elective there was to take, and it was all music.
Right.
But if I'd have been a kid who wanted to get into journalism or anything like that, I don't know if we would have had the right person that could have directed you to that.
You talking about in high school?
Yeah.
Hell no way.
Yeah. You went to Holston and you went to Carter?
Carter, yeah.
Well, and I went to Carter first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we
for
were
a while.
For a while. Then they were, it's right before they were going to what they call desegregate the schools around here. And so I moved a year early because it was inevitable.
Right.
And then they closed the school I went to. I was the last graduating class at Holston. So,
I feel
we didn't have no guidance counselor that I know of in high school. Now we did in middle school. I remember that, but I don't remember ever talking to a guy.
We had one, and he all I remember him telling me is that I needed to cut my hair.
Okay.
Yeah, that was it. My guidance counselor, your hair's too long. That's all I got.
And we were
shaping young people's minds.
Well, ultimately, I became a guidance counselor. I was a guidance counselor for 16 years. Okay. 16 years, yeah. Middle school.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I mean, the kids were great, and I learned, everything you do, you learn so much from.
Middle school's a really big adjustment period for kids.
It's hard.
Oh, man.
Being a dad of a daughter, she was a halo child. I mean, she was an angel, and middle school hit and she was a demon. I mean, not literally, but just all those things, the clicks and the
physical changes, everything. It's just too much to deal with.
It's just overload.
Right. It's one of those things where you need your 30-year-old brain to deal with all the stuff you're going to when you're 13, but you don't got that yet.
So that's a good way of putting it. That's good.
Very good.
Yeah. No guidance counselors. I remember Mr. Tipton in middle school. But that's it. And we would go in there maybe once a quarter and just sit, nothing. Right. Never come and said, "Hey, what's your career choice?" Nothing.
Right.
Yeah, I always felt like I'd probably, and see, I didn't know there was, obviously other than a performer and entertainer, but I didn't know about all the jobs in the music side of things. I just thought you went and you became a teacher.
Right.
Or you became an instructor of some sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But I never dreamed, that there would be everything, that you learned in school could then translate into musical, into stage, into theater, into movies, into TV, where all of that could take you.
All you knew were the real basics. That was the same with me.
Yeah.
I do remember one flicker of considering a writing career that was something other than being the next Bob Dylan, which was my aspiration. And that was when I learned that Jimmy Buffett went to Southern Miss. So it's all through music for me. He went to Southern Miss and majored in journalism.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if he got through it all, but that's what he did. He was from, he went to high school in Mobile. So we kind of claimed Jimmy Buffett for ours.
I would claim him for mine. He's as much of a Renaissance man as there ever has been. If you really look at it from beginnings to, opening up concerts for big name bands, just him and a guitar and singing his songs. And
first time I saw him was in Mobile, and he opened for Loggins and Messina.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, we loved Jimmy Buffett already, so he kind of stole the show as far as that goes. They were good. Still have fond memories of them, but that was the first time I saw him, and he was a good writer. His book, the song is Pirate Looks at 40. The book is The Pirate Looks at 50, I think. And that book is great.
I haven't read that. I need to check that out.
It's a good. I'm sure you like rock biographies, and that's a really good one.
Yeah,
it's a lot about sailing and just his life outside of music too. But
do you remember he did a song, and I learned it because back in the day when I first kind of started doing the singer-songwriter thing, I wasn't in those listening rooms. You don't start out in the listening rooms.
Right.
Most people don't. I won't say you can't, but, I was in just a neighborhood bar, cash bar, beer bar.
Trying to get the rowdy beer drinkers to listen to you and all. Yeah.
So you learned a little of this, you learned a little of that, and you mixed your stuff in, and you tried to, fool them all, at least for a couple, 3 hours, right?
Right.
But we would, you'd get Margaritaville, or you'd get, the over requests, I guess is a good way of saying it. But, and somebody, undoubtedly would be, say Freebird or Wagon Wheel or something, Rocky Top, something that just piss you off that you've, and I learned the bar owner was a big Buffett fan, and he gave me everything Buffett from way, way, way back to listen to. He's like, you need to dig into this. He said, not all of it's probably going to be your bag. He said, but there's going to be some stuff in there with you and your personality that you're going to get. And he said, you need to know about this. You know about a lot of this other stuff. You need to know about this stuff. And I said, okay. So I listened to it, but I learned this, and I don't even know if it's the real name of it or not, but I just always call it the Asshole Song. And it's a song Buffett wrote. And so when you get that special request or you get it in such a way that you can't spin it or you can't overcome it from this side of the mic, then you say, well, I don't know, but I know this one by him.
Right.
And I save it especially for people like you. And you set into it. But
your own little private.
It's very good.
Joke. Yeah.
Were you born an asshole or have you worked at it your whole life? Either way, it's worked out fine because you're an asshole tonight. And there's verses with it, and it's awesome. And you can have a lot of tongue in cheek fun.
Right.
But I always like Buffett. We shared a version of "See a Heartbreak" that he did. The old Don Gibson song.
Yeah, I know the song. He did that?
He did a version of it. Yeah, I sent it out to the boys the other night just to say, hey, check this out. This is a pretty good version of this. And I'd like to start doing this song every once in a while.
Right. It's a good one.
It is a good one.
Of course, a lot of Don Gibson was.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So how long after when did you start your teaching? Was that right out of school or?
So no, I never, it never entered my mind. Oh, I'll be a guidance counselor and tell people to get their hair cut. No, I finished at the University of Florida and, now I had a master's in counseling and no plan still because I just didn't know. And so we were broke and unemployed. And so we could have gone back to Mobile. And we're so glad we didn't. We needed to get out of there. And so we just looked at the map, like, where do you want to go? And I'd always want to live in the mountains, close to the mountains, near the mountains. So that was a thought. And then there were two places I could continue my studies, two universities in the South that had another level for that degree. And one was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And one was in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah, you made the right choice.
So when you're confronted with that choice, Knoxville looks really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So we moved up here with just no more plan than that. Just that, like, we're to be near the mountains and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So
that was in 82?
82.
Right when the World's Fair.
Middle of the World's Fair.
Yeah.
Had no idea there was a World's Fair going on in Knoxville, but we got here and realized it.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah. We went one day. We went the day Jimmy Carter was there. Jimmy Carter came and I waved to the crowd. So we got to see Jimmy Carter. And it was the biggest attendance day of the summer, which was just horrible. I mean, you just moving around like that all day, And but yeah, so I did social work for a while. I worked with teen pregnancy, doing education in schools and working with the girls in Sevier County. That was really my main area, and that was an awesome experience. I mean, people stereotype. Well, people stereotype everybody, no matter what the group is. But for the mountains, it's like, well, they're closed off. They won't let in an outsider, and so forth. Well, I was 24 or something, and I had spiky hair, like the new wave haircut, and shaggy in the back, and the spikes out there, and had a beard and everything. And I'm a baby face. And I go out into the mountains to talk to these girls who are 13 and 14 and 15 about it, the most intimate things you can talk about.
Sure.
They're pregnant and whatever. I had so many families welcome me into their home and appreciate what help I could offer. And it was good for me. It was really good it was probably much better for me than it was for anybody I taught to during that time. I did that for a few years, and it was during the Reagan years, and every year there was a question of would there be funding? Would there, it was just awful to live under the gun like that. We had a kid by that time. And so I got to know some guidance counselors during that time who I worked with at schools, and they were really good humans, and they were really cared about the kids, and they were helping them. And that's what kind of turned me to thinking, well, I could probably do that. Yeah. So that led to it. So I did it for 16 years.
Wow. And that was for Sevier County schools?
No, I actually wound up working 1 year with Sevier County schools. The social work stuff was with Sevier County.
Right.
But most of my career was at Jefferson Middle School in Oak Ridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was kind of a fluke that got me there. And it was one of those things that you look back on and you're just really thankful for, because that was a great place to do a career. My daughter wound up going to middle school there while I was a guidance counselor. And now she's started her 19th year teaching English at that same middle school.
No kidding.
Wow. Yeah. We overlapped for about 5 years. We got to work together, which was great.
That's very neat. So she still lives in Jefferson County?
No, it's Jefferson Middle School in Oak Ridge.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in Oak Ridge. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, everybody does that.
I got you.
Everybody does that.
And when you first said it, I thought, wow, that's on two different ends of the...
No, there's a Jefferson Middle School there.
I got you. Okay.
But it's a good school system, and it was just been good to our family.
Yeah.
In general.
No, that's great. How that must have been pretty exciting to be able to work with your daughter.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that girl. I mean, I do. We still travel together and stuff. So it was incredible and incredible for her to be able to go back to teach with the teachers that taught her.
Absolutely.
And it's been a great thing for us. And actually, my grandson now goes to Oak Ridge schools, and he'll be at that same middle school next year. So kind of the chain continues, which is cool.
Very good. I feel I didn't offer earlier. I don't know if you partake or not. Are you a cigar smoker?
I am not a cigar smoker. It is the one kind of smoke. Well, no, there are a couple kinds of smoke. I'll correct myself on that. That I don't mind the smell of at all.
Right.
Cigarette smoke I can't do, but other than that, I'm fine.
We try to keep it pretty airy in here. I've spoke to several guests and stuff that are like, no, there's enough. We're not feeling like we're being hotboxed, but
no, I did find Rusty's story about his one time that he chewed to be pretty amusing.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I have a similar story. I chewed one time, or not chewed, but I dipped one time, and I was working doing swimming pool construction in South Alabama, and it gets to be about 100 and whatever degrees, and the humidity is just dripping off of you down there. And in the swimming pool, you put in a sand bottom, or we did then, and you put in metal sides. All that's reflecting that heat. Mm-hmm. You're down in there doing this stuff, smoothing out. We were on one of those jobs, and we were just all determined we're going to get this done because we ain't coming back to this place and doing this anymore. Today is the day. So it got to be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was starving. And I said, man, I've just got to have food. I can't, I'm a 16-year-old boy or 17. You got to eat so many times, a day. And a friend of mine said, and, he knew what he was doing, and said, oh, well, here you go. Just take a little dip. They said, that'll take care of your hunger. I said, well, all right, I'll do anything. I'm starving, man. Well, you can imagine what happened next.
Yeah.
My story ends the same way Rusty's does.
It did take care of your hunger, though.
I wasn't hungry for a while after that. That's true.
Yeah, it's a buddy of mine always says that. Yeah, and you know where that got me? Where's that? Straight to the scene of the accident.
Right.
Very cool. Yeah, I had a similar story when I first started, and my mom found out, and I just lied. I mean, lied like a rug. Just said, I started acting sick, and I liked it, but I couldn't let on like I did, you know. So I made the stories up. Now I've seen a few people get pretty green with it.
Oh man,
yeah. You had a good experience with some cigars one time, didn't you?
Oh, I gave them to you.
Yeah, I know.
Because of it, man. Wife come home and found me laying in the bathroom floor. Lights were off. Are you okay? Don't open the door. I didn't throw up that time, but my watermelon crawl story with the Copenhagen. I don't know. We told that on one of the shows, but my buddy did the same thing.
I don't remember that.
We were down on the bank fishing and drinking a lot. And he's like, hey, take a little pinch of this, you know. It's like, all right. Well,
seemed like a good idea.
You know, the fishing pole, that was the thing. I put a little bit in there. And, man, we had the radio and that Tracy Bird song, Watermelon Crawl.
You remember the song.
Came on, and I puked for the entirety of that whole song.
Oh my gosh.
Never touched it again. Not that, obviously, but man.
Yeah.
Empty stomach and hot. Oh, it's a bad combo.
Yeah. Well, a little tip if you ever find yourself in that, if you're, you know, partaking in something like that, or if a cigar is a little nicotine heavy and it gets you a little woozy, you can get you some sugar.
Yep.
And
sugar.
It'll help. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Metabolizes it.
Yeah.
There.
It'll help. It'll help with that.
Well, I don't think I'm in danger of being in that particular situation again. So
I'd say
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the song that was playing when you had that experience. I've always had that kind of memory about things.
Yeah, me too.
Like I'll always say, oh, you know, the song that was playing then was so-and-so. And I always thought that was like, we're all built like that.
No.
And I was like a way grown adult before I realized not everybody does that.
Yeah.
My daughter does it. Like, you know, I guess she got it from me. I don't know. But the first thing that taught me that, we had a class reunion. It was our 10th class reunion, right? We had high school. And so I thought, oh man, I have a lot of vinyl. So a big vinyl collection. So I thought, man, I'm going to go back and I'm going to put everybody's favorite song. I remember she liked this song and he liked that song. And I remember when we were doing this, we were listening to this song. And you know, so I put this tape together and I thought this is going to be the thing that's going to have everybody talking.
Right.
Like crying and, you know, just like remembering. And so I put that bad boy on and I'm just waiting.
Right.
Nothing.
Oh, that's the
and
worst.
I finally like started saying, hey, don't you remember when we were doing so-and-so? Hey, no, I don't remember that. Yeah. Kind of hurt.
Yeah. I can hear a song, and if it's something, I can go right back to a particular moment.
Yeah, me too. Sometimes it's simple. Like, oh, I remember one time that came on when I was folding laundry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something like nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
My, the neighbor over here, before he passed, he was an audiophile and a videophile, and just loved, one of his things to do would be, he would take, like he'd find out what year you were born, or what year you graduated, or what year, you know, certain, not milestones, but just certain important parts of your time.
Right.
And your age and timeline, and he would put together like the top 40 for that year, or songs of that decade or whatever, you know, and just make countless CDs and tapes.
That's awesome. What a gift for people, you know, for people who can appreciate it.
Yeah. And he really helped me a lot with, you know, I was so heavily influenced and well versed in the bluegrass and country side of it that, you know, other than the real early rock and roll, which another lady was responsible for introducing me to all of that because she would bring me tapes of the Platters and.
So you're talking early,
Fats and
Chuck Berry,
Little Richard, Chuck Berry,
right,
all that kind of stuff. And but he turned me on to so much good stuff but you know who's playing right there, don't you? No, I have no idea. Well, it was so and so. He played with this one back in the blah, and he came from, he was just a wealth of.
I love that kind of stuff.
Knowledge from the rock and roll side of it too. So I had sections in my life that it was just like sponge.
Right.
Big moments that just was like, oh my God, I can't get enough of it.
Well, if they hit you at the right moment in your life, it changes you.
Yeah.
It just changes who you are.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan was that way for me. I'm a huge Dylan fan. I've seen him probably 40 times or 50.
Oh, wow.
But, I found Bob Dylan when I was probably 12. And rock and roll had been forbidden to me. I couldn't listen to rock and roll. And that was kind of the point at which I said, I'm going to do this. It was the first time I'd ever defied my parents, probably. And that opened up a world to me. I didn't know. I lived in Alabama through the 1960s, and I didn't know anything about civil rights. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the news. I was a kid, and I started learning that stuff really through Bob Dylan and through, his lyrics and what does he mean by that, and looking it up. And then, one thing leads to another, of course, and there's Woody Guthrie and Joan Baez, who was more direct and political, and it changes who you are.
That's interesting. We don't think about that, and I don't know why that is. With just, I guess, with the world was a bigger place, and as being your age had a lot to do with it, I'm sure. But you weren't. There wasn't all of the media attention. Well, that's not even the right way to say it either. I guess there just wasn't as many outlets.
No, you couldn't find your people as easily,
Yeah.
You were just kind of isolated out there. You're thinking, well, I'm the only person thinking like this. You didn't have a Facebook group you could join or, find somebody out there on the internet.
Right.
So it was pretty isolating growing up in a really super conservative area and not feeling like I fit,
Yeah.
There's a great Jesse Winchester song. I've quoted this a million times in my life. You know the song Nothing But a Breeze, Jesse Winchester? Jesse Winchester's a great singer-songwriter.
Okay.
He wrote Biloxi that Jimmy Buffett recorded, which is a phenomenal song. But in a song, Nothing But a Breeze, off his first album when he came back from Canada, he had evaded the draft and went to Canada. Carter pardoned those people, and so he came back and made this album. And he said, I'm
not ignoring you. I'm writing that down.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a great album. It's not just a song, it's an album. But in that song, he says, I want to live with my feet in Dixie and my head in the cool blue north. And it was like that gobsmacked me as a 17-year-old. It's like, that's what I've been feeling, And I think those pivotal moments are just, I don't know. I feel sad for people who don't have music as a touchstone in their life,
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I can't either. It's just like, that seems sad or something. It's empty.
It's not only sad, it just seems impossible to me.
I agree.
I don't know how you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
But a lot of people do. They don't.
Right.
They must derive their joy from other sources, is all I can figure.
Music's kind of background for them. It's not something you pay attention to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which has permeated a lot of the audiences these days. It's just we're background music a lot of the times. So,
right.
Like your place in Louisville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way we felt. But then when we got finished,
maybe they were critically listening.
I think they were. I think what Alan said, that maybe they were treating it as if it were spoken word or an open reading or just performance based place.
I'll be honest,
that's what they want.
I'd be one of those people.
Yeah.
That's the kind of listener I am.
Yeah.
when I'm in the presence of music and it's good music,
I
really don't want anybody talking around me.
Right.
I want you to shut up because I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of awkward. I like going, I learned this early. I like going to concerts by myself because I don't want anybody talking to me. I'm there for a reason, I learned that early. I had a girlfriend, high school, and I went to see Bob Dylan. First time I'd seen him. It's Rolling Thunder tour. So it was awesome. Joan Baez was there and the whole business. And it was just such a revelatory moment for me. I'd been building for this, from age 12. And she got mad at me because I didn't take her. And I said, well, you don't like Bob Dylan. You don't even listen. You don't know Bob Dylan. She said, yeah, but I would enjoy just going to a concert with you. So I thought, well, all right then. So noted, I'm stupid and young. I don't know what I'm doing. And
you would.
I thought eventually I would know what I was doing. That never came. But anyway, so the next concert that came along, I bought 2 tickets, right? And it was the opener was the Flying Burrito Brothers. Not bad. The next act was my favorite band at the time, Poco. I loved Poco at that time. And the main act was Willie Nelson.
Oh, wow.
So it was a great lineup. So I took her to that, and she was miserable and went out of her way to let me know all night she was miserable. And I swore that night at 17 years old, I'll never go to a concert with somebody else who doesn't want to be there as bad as I do.
Right.
I just won't do it.
Yeah.
So I'd be your person sitting there sipping a drink and listening to every line I could catch. Because I appreciate the music,
Yeah, no. And and it's something as time has went by, it's something more and more that I appreciate.
Right.
It's one of the special things about doing the Christmas show at the Bijou.
Right.
As now you're not competing with, 400 drunk people in a bar that's loud, that's cavernous already.
Right.
And not that all of those times were great times, and it started out a great traditional thing and a work for me, but I like it better the other way when you're not just spending months getting ready for that show. You spend a lifetime when you get the opportunity to get on a stage like that or to perform in front of people, regardless of the stage, but especially somewhere that, so many other great people have played. And
it goes almost like hallowed ground.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
I took my son, my grandson. I've got he's 9, and for whatever reason, his favorite artist of all time is Johnny Cash.
Really?
And his other favorite is Ringo Starr of all people.
Wow.
Yeah, go figure, right?
What a weird little kid. I mean,
I know. Isn't that awesome?
He's your grandson.
Yeah. So Ringo.
No, that is awesome.
Ringo came to the Ryman. Of course, Johnny's dead, so I can't do much about that one. But I did take him to the Johnny Cash Museum, and he loved it.
Oh, yeah.
But we took him to the Ryman to see Ringo. And it was pretty phenomenal. I mean, Ringo, is everybody's 4th favorite Beatle,
Yeah.
But he's fun and he's positive. He has lots of great energy. Like dances on the stage like he's 40. I mean, it's incredible. He's in his 80s. But it was awesome to take, speaking of hallowed ground, it was awesome to take my grandson to the Ryman.
Oh, yeah.
And just to talk to him about what that place means and what it meant to me as a small child to go there. And now you're here and this place is still so special. And you're building your first memory here, with Ringo Starr.
Right.
So that was awesome.
No, that's a great moment. The first time I got to go to the Ryman, I went with my dad, and we just did the little backstage tour thing. It was during the middle of the day. But the first show I got to see there was, I was older, a lot older, but it was Dwight Yoakam.
Nice.
And he hadn't been back. That was his first time back to the Ryman in like 17 or 18 years or something. I guess something had went down. Somebody pissed off somebody. You know?
Right. Probably.
But it was very, very special.
Right.
Just to be there.
It is. I mean, the ghosts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember even as a small kid, like I said, my first hero was Hank Williams. And just being in that space and knowing Hank Williams stood there.
Yeah.
That was mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Funny story about my daughter, Hannah. When she was young, she had been playing fiddle and was doing pretty good with it. And she sang some, but it was all, if she wanted to do it, we would do it. It was never, hey, get your fiddle, or hey, come here and me and you work on this song together or sing. It was never got to that kind of place. And I don't know if I'd ever been one to push it anyway.
Right.
It never was pushed on me. So, but I picked her up at fiddle lessons one night up in Maryville. We were driving back and we had WDVX on. Nita was on. It was Hillbilly Fever. And I'd always ask her, I'd say, do you want to call in a song? You want to call in a request or something like that? And she loved Move It On Over by Hank.
Of course.
And she said, yeah, I'll call that one in. And so she did. Of course, Nita gave her the shout out and it came on. And she goes, are all those people there? I said, wow. What do you mean? She said, well, I was like, well, Nita's there. She said, no, like Hank Williams and Johnny Cash or whoever. I'm just throwing out names. But and I said, well, no, they're on recordings, and Nita's, the person who plays these recordings, and she's called a disc jockey, and we started talking and going on. So I don't know. One thing led to another, and I just had the bright idea. I was like, you just want to drive by there? And because I know she had been in there when she was probably really little, probably just didn't remember. And so we drove all the way from Maryville to back when they were still out on 122 in Norris at the campground, and drove out there and went in. And I called Nita and I said, hey, I'm coming by. And Hannah did it on the airdrop and all this stuff. But she thought those people were there.
She called each one of them up to the microphone to do their song. That's awesome.
I guess
don't you wish it could be like
me all those years at festivals and different places. But
well, I'll trade you a daughter's story that's similar vein and talking about hallowed ground and stuff. Because I kind of think of the Bijou and the Tennessee both that way.
Yeah,
seen so many great people there. But so when my daughter was young, I tried not to contaminate her either, with my own prejudices and biases and favorite artists and all that kind of thing. But she picked up the Beatles, which I've always liked the Beatles, but I never thought of myself as a big Beatles fan. But she was a bigger fan than I was, and then that led to Bob Dylan, because they, of course, inevitably talk about Bob. And I'd never pushed Bob on her as much as I love him. So she and I have seen Bob probably 30 times together.
Wow.
But she had her, let's see, what was it? Her prom at the Tennessee Theater.
Okay.
And they danced on the stage.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And I said, wow, that's really awesome. This would have been, 2001 or something like that. And I said, well, how was it? She said, Dad, I just kept dancing up there and thinking, I'm dancing where Earl Scruggs stood. And that was the first I knew that she had really liked it. We made her go to Earl Scruggs. I did make her do some things. Going to Earl Scruggs was one of those things, I said, you just got to see this human while he's alive.
Yeah.
And apparently it struck a chord that I didn't know.
He's one of those persons.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. And it's so good for them. And I guess, you're like me. You think back on those moments and it makes you really it makes you happy, obviously, but it also is one of those important times for you to think that, this was a good thing. I did good there,
right?
To get to be able to see this happen, to live this out.
I don't think you can make them do anything.
No.
And if you try to make them, it probably just blows up in your face. But you just offer them, like, here's the thing, and then here's another thing. Yeah. And I think they find their own things.
Yeah, I think so too. And they're going to develop their own taste. I mean, I'm sure my mom and dad wouldn't have understood me wearing a Twisted Sister T-shirt to high school.
That's why you didn't put it on till you got to school.
That's right. Or I put another shirt over top of it, took it off at the school bus or at the bus stop, But I got to do a lot of neat things. I got to play on the midday not the midday merry-go-round, but the Bradley Reeves had something on Facebook about it just the other day. The Tennessee Barn Dance.
Oh yeah,
they used to do it on WNOX.
Right
back I got to play on there one time as a kid, play banjo and stuff with my dad. So that was pretty fun, and some big things. But music's just always been that part of my life, and it seems it's allowed me to do a lot of really cool things and see a lot of places of the world I never dreamed I'd see, or do things that I do. But now I guess I first kind of met you back when probably during like Barstool Romeo days.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's the first time I remember it.
Yeah.
And I love the Barstool Romeos.
Yeah, I seen Andy out the other day. I need to get him on at some point in time. We'll maybe see if we can't work that out at some point. But it was. So what's been has there been anything happened in with the website? Because I can tell. Well, let me start over. I know when the pandemic first hit, your coverage of that and doing the numbers every day I felt like one of the unbiased places that I could get factual information of the truth. And knowing that we didn't know a lot about this, and we were just this basically all of that was a collection of data, and was going to be for a long time until we could start comparing anything,
figuring it out.
Is there anything other than that's been a high spot or something to be remembered, or
I don't know if I call that a high spot.
Well,
it was interesting,
monumental.
It was monumental.
Let's say it that way. That would be the right way.
Talk a little bit about that. That whole thing. Of course, none of us saw it coming. We were at Mardi Gras in Mobile. Mobile has the oldest and a big Mardi Gras. We were at Mobile Mardi Gras as it was starting to kind of break.
Right.
And, if we'd known what we knew 3 weeks later, we'd have never gone.
Right.
But, we didn't know. So, I got back and everything I write about stopped. So there was like nothing to write about.
Right.
So, and it pretty quickly hit me that this is like,
just not to interrupt, but
sure.
I didn't think about that side of it in your shoes because you were just like an entertainer as well.
Right.
Our world closed down.
That's right. My advertising all stopped because all my advertising was hospitality,
right?
That kind of thing. And so I suddenly had no income, and I had nothing to write about. I tried to write about just different little things, like I'd go for walks and just, to just riff on things. It was a beautiful spring.
Almost like the vlog, going back to a vlog day.
Yeah, almost.
Vlog day.
Yeah. So it was an incredibly gorgeous spring.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was especially beautiful if I paid attention, But I did start doing some of that. But then I pretty quickly felt like I've got a responsibility in this time to address what's happening.
Right.
And so I started the daily reports. Pretty quickly got blowback from people who said, well, we don't want to hear about that. You need to write about Knoxville. Like, okay, what do you want me to write about? So then I tried to do both. So I wrote 2 articles a day for a long time. During that period, our grandchildren came to live with us because they were virtually schooled. So we had them for 9 months in our little condo. We had just downsized right before all of it. So now we have 4 people living there, and I'm writing 2 articles a day for no money. And it was an intense period of time. And what I never understood, and still looking back in some ways don't understand, is that it all became political. Because to me, it was just like, we're all in this together.
Amen.
We've all got this virus. The virus is not political.
Yeah.
Like if the doctors, the best guess they have is we put a cloth over our face and that's going to help us, then of course we're going to do it. Why would we not? Why is that like a vaccine? Like, of course we're going to get the vaccine because that's what we do. Like we trust the scientists, so every step of the way I was told, nope, that's not how we all see it. Nope, nope, nope. So I think the factual stuff was an evolution in a way. I mean, there were some crazy things being said by, I'll just say some of our leaders early on.
Yeah.
And I thought they were on their face ridiculous. I thought we would all agree with that. Well, we didn't, of course. So
it was almost like a logic-free.
It was.
I mean, we're still there a little bit with a lot of things, but it's like, no.
Those
we don't
facts,
use that here.
Well, alternative facts, right?
We don't use that here.
Yeah. So anyway, so I tried to become very apolitical and just, here is what's happening. And you can like it or not like it. You can do what you want to about it, but this is what's happening.
Well, I felt like you did a wonderful job with that.
I appreciate that very much.
And I'm sure it had to be quite burdensome.
It was hard. I mean, I was writing 2 articles a day because eventually things did start happening.
Yeah.
But we were still dealing with that. So I wrote 2 a day with grandkids running around my feet. It was not hard, not easy.
And trying to maintain a neutral stance too.
Exactly.
It's like you find anything written now with no political slant and it's probably 50 years old.
It's hard.
Pretty much.
Well, it's hard because I had opinions.
Sure.
And so to separate those out and just go hardcore, it was a fascinating time. I mean, I think I think history will look back on that, and hopefully it's not dwarfed by the next big thing that happens, but as just a very strange time.
That reminds me, we should do a COVID show and talk about, because I was just thinking about, we've talked about this many times, obviously, in the last 4 years, but for someone, that's doing what you were doing and what you were doing for a living versus what I was doing for a living, it didn't slow down for us. It got busier.
What do you do?
I own a trucking company.
Okay.
And it was just,
everybody was shipping stuff.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people weren't shipping stuff too. And just the demand was far outpaced the supply of drivers.
Okay.
So it was not a respite at all. It was, hey.
Right.
And then I got COVID, had to work, and,
you got it right before the first year we did the Bijou.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, we were going to do it the year it got canceled.
Right.
That was going to be the first year. And then I did the
online thing.
Yeah, I forget what we called it. Any rate.
But I got it in 21. In 21, which was right before the first real Bijou show. And, man, I thought I was going to die. But we ought to do a show about that, about 2 different perspectives, because you always, especially with our circle of friends and stuff, a lot of them are entertainers or in a business where it was just slow. Hey, everything came to a screeching halt. There was none of that in my industry. It was, compared to now, like we're at a screeching halt now.
Right.
Because of economic factors and whatever. But, we ought to do a show on that.
It's extremely different for all kinds of people.
Yeah, it really
Some people made a lot of money during that period. Some people got broke during that period.
Yeah.
It was just crazy.
Yeah, I remember I was cutting back. was starting to cut back then before, because I had gotten my business had grown to the place where I was making as much money, and I wasn't having to do as many performances. So I was just on the brakes after 20 years of being able to kind of pick and choose the stuff I wanted to do versus what I had to do to make it. And so I had cut my load quite a bit, and then and went through a year of that, and then was getting ready to cut it again, and then it was just the bottom was out of it.
Right.
Yeah, that would be interesting to do. Just a time capsule,
just a contrast and compare it, because everybody had a very different experience.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important to.
If you told me a year before it happened, well, your grandkids are going to come live with you next year, I'd have thought, well, that means that my daughter and son-in-law died. I mean, I wouldn't have been, how could it happen if that wasn't the case, I mean, so it threw us in ways, in directions that we couldn't have imagined,
Yeah, it was.
And it was horrible for my grandchildren because they lost their parents basically for 9 months, But it was also amazing because we got to know our grandchildren in ways we had never gotten to know them.
Right.
So it was a lot of mixture of bitter and sweet.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah, it's well put. There was a lot that happened here. There was a lot of bitter and sweet in my life as well, just from a day to day to the closures, to health, to completely stepping up and doing a different role.
Oh yeah,
in my life, and of being,
My baby brother died in December of 19, and he's 55, and it was excruciating for months for all our family, and so we were coming out of that loss.
Yeah.
And thinking, man, 2020, we're going to get our life back to normal. We're going to find some joy. We're going to, this is going to be our year. I even, we had the king cake at our Mardi Gras celebration, and I got the baby. It was like, this is going to be my year. I'm telling you, people.
Oh, wow.
And then a few weeks later, it's like, this thing is happening in China. Oh, now it's in New York City. And
well, you got the grandkids.
I did get the grandkids. Maybe that was
correlation.
The thing. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you, Mike. That's probably it.
Man, yeah, I was kind of like you. I obviously it wasn't a family member, but I'd lost a roommate who was an older gentleman who was very much a mentor to me, as well as a good friend. And one day he was there, and 3 months later he wasn't.
Right.
And so my plans were to come back and visit for about a month and a half with mom and dad, because I didn't get to see them near as much as I wanted to, because I was playing and working and busy and touring all the time. And then I got up here and I started seeing things. I was like, well, this needs to be done. This needs to be done. Then I kind of started watching them, and I'm like, that's why this needs to be done. And then we got the news with my dad being terminal. And then the next thing you know, there comes COVID, and it was just like, oh shit, what do we do now?
Right.
So I know it was very hard on families and friends and everything.
Well, so many people died. I mean, so many people lost people. And, you're talking about the oddities of it earlier. Who it hits hard doesn't seem to be like, we still don't know why it hits some people the way it hits them. I had my niece's son, my niece's husband got it and nearly died, and he was healthy and young and no reason for that.
Yeah.
And then, we've had, like, my uncle got it. I'm caretaker for my uncle. He's 88. And we thought, if he gets it, he's not going to have anything to fight it off with.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's like a little cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going.
I mean,
kept rocking, So it's just hard to know.
Well, we had that one. I remember back during when it first happened, there was, I guess it was I don't think it was an maybe it was an Olympic swimmer, an Australian guy
that rings a bell,
got it and almost died.
Right.
And it was like, golly, if he can't beat it. I mean,
that was pretty scary early on. Yeah.
Hey, if I had been older, I'd have died. Sure. Yeah. I mean, because fortunately didn't have any of that respiratory stuff, hardly any of that. It's just the fever was delirious. I mean, 105 fever for a week.
Wow. Ooh.
That's
scary.
Yeah. And I didn't miss a minute of work. None. I work at home, but still.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you weren't hospitalized with 105 fever for
I mean, at that point, we knew a nurse and she brought me an IV and stuff. And that was the turning point. I was able to give me just a little help. But man, if I'd have been, older or had any kind of other malady, I'd been dead. No doubt, for sure.
Well, we never got it until this summer.
I've had it twice. Summer. Second time was no problem. But
my daughter and I brought it back from New York City. But we think, looking back on it, we probably caught it on the airplane on the way to New York City. Yeah. Had it while we were there, didn't realize it. Like we got some sniffles or whatever. And then it punched me when I got back.
Oh, man, yeah.
But just for like 24 hours.
Yeah.
And my wife got it, and she had to have the medicines and the whole business because she got it bad.
I don't know if I had it or I didn't.
Yeah. Well, I
never tested positive, but that January of 2020, about mid-January, maybe it's probably around the second week of January, second weekend, I was bad sick. Yeah. I was down for a week.
That was this year.
No, back when it.
Oh,
but yes, I got something again this year.
I did tell you we were sick at the same time.
In mid to late January, and I tested, but it tested negative.
I have that question too. When we came back from Mardi Gras in 2020,
but I never trusted it. It was just like
I had a dry cough.
Bunker down.
I had a dry cough for probably 4 months.
Oh, man.
And I kept coughing, and I kept saying, I don't know why I'm coughing because I'm not coughing anything up. What is this? It's weird. And so I wonder. A lot of us wonder about those things early. Anyway, came out of that, I guess, to bring it back a little bit. My readership exploded during that because I think people did appreciate the coverage.
Yeah.
And I kept a lot of those readers. So that's been a great thing that, for me, my readership is bigger than ever.
Yeah.
And, the advertisers have started to come back some. So that's better. But it's been great to have a bigger audience. And a lot of people tell me what you told me earlier, how much they appreciated the steady kind of, this is just the situation.
Yeah.
Make of it as you will, but this is the situation. And in the long run, it turned out to be, it gained me some readership. And
well, we needed a really unbiased, we needed that perspective because we didn't
always need that perspective.
We still do, don't we?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm really appreciative of the very few places that I feel like I can get. Just a straight up.
We talk about that a lot, and we grew up. I was born in '74, so during that time, Knoxville had 2 newspapers, had the Journal, and probably had more than one, but 2 major newspapers. Right. One in the morning, one in the evening.
Right. That's what you did.
And you could pick up that newspaper, and pretty much whatever you read, you could take it to the bank. Right. But there was an editorial section for opinions and things like that.
But you knew that's what it was.
Yeah. But now it's all opinions. It's like, man. And a buddy of mine, we talked about this, and he and I were in business together. And he said, I think it's because, once CNN started with 24-hour news, and now you can get news instantly.
Right.
He said, there's just not really 24 hours worth of news.
Nope.
So they had to fill that time with something,
growing up, we had the 2 newspapers in Mobile too, morning and afternoon. But mostly, you turned on Walter at night, and he told you what was happening.
And you believed him. You trusted him with your life.
And we all heard that same newscast and accepted that as the base facts.
Right.
And now, it's not just what's opinion, what's not. We don't agree what the facts are.
That's exactly
anymore.
right. Yeah.
And now Mobile, my hometown, has 0 newspapers. There's not a morning or an afternoon.
And that's
newspaper.
a sad. I love newspapers. I love reading. I started to. I'm all the time getting an email for Wall Street Journal. I'm not going to read most of that, but boy, it'd be nice to have a paper sitting outside the house to.
I had a weird experience with that. I went to New York City recently with my daughter. We go every year and listen to a lot of music and see art and stuff. And I thought, I'm in New York City on Sunday morning. I'm getting a New York Times, the full mother,
Yeah.
And I'm going to read the New York Times in a coffee shop that I love. It wasn't the same. I've gotten used to reading my news on my phone. And most of what I read, I'd already seen on the New York Times app the day before.
Right.
And it was a lot thinner than the old New York Times used to be.
Oh, sure.
So there's all these parts of it that I came away from it thinking, well, I think that's just a nostalgic thing for me now.
It really is something I miss. But
Yeah.
that, and I mean, you would take with the Sentinel on Sundays. We always got the Sunday paper.
Right.
It was 50 cents for a long time, and then it went to like $2 overnight, it seemed like. And I'm sure I don't know if they do it now, but.
I think it's even more expensive now.
And then, but you didn't want the weekend edition of USA Today. That wasn't a good edition. You wanted the week through the week because we're baseball fans. So I was all the time looking at those scores, and I wanted that box score and everything else.
Oh yeah, gotta have the box scores.
And now it's it's instant gratification with news as it is everything else. So.
Right.
Speaking of baseball,
I miss the funny paper too, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there are parts of it that we lost. I mean, speaking of music and tying it into that, Wayne Bledsoe's column. When I moved to Knoxville, man, I found Wayne Bledsoe immediately. And I wouldn't know Wayne for the next 25 years, but I would read Wayne. And that's how I learned about local bands. And that's how I learned about, national bands. I mean, everything that was happening in music, I learned from Wayne Bledsoe.
Seems like he had his picture on there too. It seems like that's how I knew what he looked like.
Right. I think you're right.
Yeah, man.
So we've lost a lot.
We really have.
Yeah.
And it's,
we sound like old men here.
Yeah, well,
I'm afraid
we are old men.
We are like old people.
I certainly feel like one sometimes, most of the time. Okay, almost all the time.
Right.
Well, what's the latest scuttlebutt and news around town? The next big thing. I mean, is everybody excited about the baseball stadium?
I think more people are excited than not, but it's a mix.
Yeah.
In a lot of cities, a ballpark is a great thing. It builds a whole new part of the city, and that's what I hope we see happen here. In some cities, it doesn't turn out that way.
That's
it's a big dead zone when there's not a baseball game. So I think they've done some things right here, and I'm hopeful. But I do feel like it signals a new era in downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the era I started writing in 14 years ago is sort of like gone, and it's a new era, and it's not a bad thing necessarily at all, but it's different, and I think it's going to bring. We've seen pretty phenomenal development over the last 14 years while I've been writing, but I think now we're about to see
some big time,
a different level.
Well, that whole thing with the stadium, and then with that whole new activity, or I don't even know what they're calling it. I just read it the other day. The thing down on the river.
The UT's doing.
Yeah. I mean, all of that everything seems to be going towards a cause or a. I'm not doing a very good job of wording this right, but like an end result, we had a lot of growth, but it was very eclectic, and it was mix and match, and it was this and this and that. And
right.
But, and I don't know whether a lot of that's good or bad or indifferent, but
like most change, it'll be both, right? It'll be great and it'll be horrible.
Yeah.
It'll be both.
I hope though, talking about the ball the ballparks and whatever. Most of the time, it's a full-on major league ballpark. I hope that somebody that's involved in that went to Durham, North Carolina to see how they do it, because that's where the Durham Bulls are, minor league team, and it's just set up the way it should be.
So what about it makes it so good?
It feels big league.
Okay.
It's well attended, and locally supported. And I don't know why. I guess because, Duke's there and you don't, you've already got sports people around. So this town kind of would lend itself for that, but I don't know how they're going to get behind baseball here.
Right.
Because to us, and you too remember this, I'm sure, it's not a new thing. It's a new old thing, because the other stadium wasn't that far away.
And
by a crow.
My memory of that was the attendance there was really good. I mean, when I went, I don't remember it being empty or anything like that.
Well,
I remember people being there.
The timing was off because it got to be dangerous, and then nobody would go to Bill Meyer. It was like, okay, it was before all the, what they've done now. So I'm thinking, I know what Randy Boyd's thinking is that I already own that whole area right there. Let's just add another 20,000 in 3 nights a week, and I'm sure he sees all that revenue coming into the University of Tennessee for these non-school events. I mean, Morgan Wallen just sold out 2 Neyland Stadium.
Just like that, man.
Just like that.
I couldn't believe that.
Oh,
I'm not into like really current country music.
We're not either. You're in the right place.
So, I know who he is, mostly because of the controversies.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you one of his songs.
Yeah.
And I was shocked when I heard that he sold out Neyland Stadium 2 nights in a row, and it was like fast.
Well, it was. And the second night, apparently you could log into Ticketmaster or something, maybe StubHub, and it showed your queue where you were to get tickets. Somebody posted a screenshot. They were 105,000 in line.
So he could have sold out more.
Oh, yeah. He could have sold a week out, I bet you. And the tickets, by the time, because I got people that want to go.
Right.
And it's like, I'm not paying $1,500. I would pay $1,500 to see Elvis come back and do a concert.
How many people out of 10, if you were just walking down the street and let's just say in the city, that all ages, just the first 10 random people that you meet on the sidewalk, would you say knows who he is?
I don't know anymore.
Here or but
here, well, let's just say here or anywhere.
Depends on where you're at.
I'm saying if Alan was downtown, walking downtown street.
See, I think that number would be lower than if I was in Wartburg or Campbell County.
Well, maybe in the beginning, but now he was on one of those shows, too, American Idol or one or the other. He didn't make it to the whatever. So I hear. I didn't see it. Okay. But I would say it's half, 5 out of 10.
Wow.
You think?
In Knoxville, yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
we're so siloed now, people I don't know who he is, and I'm way into music. I hardly know who he is.
Yeah, well, but you know who Tom T. Hall is. If you ask the same question, less people know.
Totally.
Oh, way less.
And that's why
that's true.
And that's part of the reason why I was asking, because my end thing was going to be, is that what it takes to be able to sell out a Neyland Stadium?
I don't know what it takes. I mean, I don't know how
take those 5 out of 10 of anybody, anywhere, anytime,
but
knowing
you asked
who you are.
How many of those would know who he was? Then you got to say, okay, now how many of those can buy that ticket?
Well, that's the other thing.
That's the other. Well,
and it's a lot, apparently.
They're buying them on credit because now you can do that instant. Well, it's no interest, but you can do that instant. I think it's called a firm. Pretty much anywhere you log out, you check out, it'll say, would you like 4 easy payments? No interest.
Yeah, I've seen.
So you're making payments on your concert ticket.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I can remember when Michael Jackson and the
Victory.
We were
making payments on rims and tattoos.
Yeah.
I can remember the Victory tour when they came to Knoxville. And
wasn't it like $100?
50. It was 50, and it was at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah.
And we thought, man, $50.
I know.
That's
the one I always remember is the Eagles Hell Freezes Over tour.
Yeah.
They charged $100 for the good seats. And I remember saying to my friends at the time, if the Eagles can get $100 for those seats, if they do this and it doesn't flop, then watch everybody else raise. And sure enough, soon the $10 or $15 concert tickets were $30.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it hasn't stopped.
I don't understand it. I mean, to go see Paul McCartney. Did you see so WWE had a big event over in Scotland. Guess it's their second or maybe third year of doing, they're actually really going worldwide as far as a bunch of their televised stuff. So what used to be pay-per-view, all of it's now on Peacock, and now they've signed a $5 billion deal with Netflix to do live events. You know, so now it can be 100% uncensored, unfiltered, blah, 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 blah. But my point is, the cheapest ticket at that arena in Scotland was $375. I mean, I seen Ric Flair and Andre the Giant, and I mean, all these guys that came through Knoxville for less than $20, and I sat fifth row from the rail.
Yeah, I saw the Eagles.
And that was the cheapest. Was $375.
I had great seats to see the Eagles, and it was $6.
Yeah.
$6 in the 70s. At their peak. I mean, Hotel California was out.
Yeah.
That was the current album. I remember when I saw Bob Dylan the first time, I paid $8.75. And I thought, I had to really think, man, it's a lot of money. Am I I got to see Bob, but ooh. And I look back on it, like he did 2 shows that day. I could have seen him twice that day.
Wow.
For $8.75. Yeah. So maybe making payments is a wise investment, right?
I mean,
they keep going up.
I guess, but I can tell you this. Don't think for one second that the Taylor Swifts and all these other people saw him sell out 2 shows, 100,000 people back to back. That's going to be a recurring thing.
They took notes.
Absolutely.
I guarantee you.
Well,
I guarantee you, Taylor Swift can go over there, and this is not so little anymore, and do a week in a row.
I bet you're right.
Yeah.
Do a residency
in Neyland Stadium.
At the stadium.
Yeah.
Well, I'll confess, I spent a lot of money on tickets this summer to see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden.
How was that?
It was a dream for my daughter. So it's like when baby girl who's in her 40s now says, Daddy, I want to do, we do.
Yeah, yeah.
It was awesome. I mean, it was phenomenal. And, you can't get more New York than being in Madison Square Garden with Billy Joel and him doing New York State of Mind. I mean, that's like the moment, right? So, but it was ridiculous. It was like $450. But that man has done one a month at Madison Square Garden for, I think, 15 years or something like that. Once a month he plays, and it's estimated he makes $1 million every time he plays it. He does this, he plays for 2.5, 3 hours and makes $1 million.
Sold out each time.
Every time. Oh, every time. And that was his next to last show. He's now done his last show.
Yeah.
At Madison Square Garden.
I got to see him in Bonnaroo.
Oh.
And I wasn't the biggest Billy Joel fan. I mean, I had, of course, when I was old enough to really be listening to pop or popular radio would have been during, we didn't start to fire, Uptown
That's my
Girl,
daughter's favorite
all that
era,
stuff.
yeah.
Same era.
Right.
So I missed Allentown and,
right.
Under Pressure and
or Piano Man,
and
the early
Piano
stuff.
Man,
the early
all that
stuff's
stuff.
what I really loved.
And I just thought, I should just do this anyway. I'm here. But I don't know. It'll be okay, I guess.
Right.
And I
blew you away.
I had a great time.
You had a good time?
Had a good time.
He was phenomenal. His voice sounds just like it always did.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of people at that age, your voice just changes.
So what is, he's 70 something?
He's at 73 or 4, something like that.
And you can't ever tell when you're never going to, Phil Collins, done.
Right.
And maybe gone in a year or something.
I got to see him the first year I went down there, and I was helping a friend out who had a concession business. And so I was already, oh, boy, it's hot. If any chance you didn't think that for, the next 10 feet that you walk, that the devil might pop up around the corner. That's how hot it is down there. But I got to see, the first year that I went and helped him, I got to see Elton John.
Oh, that's
which
great.
was fabulous.
Never got to see him.
And I got to see Lionel Richie, which blew me away.
Super talented guy.
Just him and a piano.
Yeah.
60,000 people.
Wow. Vocals.
Yeah.
Just unreal.
And just unfreaking believable. And then I got to see Shaka Khan.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, she's
and
fun.
Taj Mahal.
Oh,
together
yeah.
on the same stage.
And
that was pretty incredible. And then Billy Joel that next year. But I just, concerts and stuff like that has kind of gotten like golf kind of got. It just it priced me out of it.
Right.
I love to play. I love the exercise. I love the peacefulness of it. I love the fact that it's just you, and, well, most of the time until I let out a string of profanities that still ring over the lake on number 12. But yeah, it just kind of priced me out. I was reading something the other day that said the average cost for a family of 4 to go to an NBA game is $700 now.
So how does a family afford to do that?
How do you do that?
They don't afford it. They credit. It's credit card. Pay for it later.
That just hurts my heart.
Nobody can afford that on a regular basis. I mean, nobody with a normal income.
Right. It's true. It's true.
It's like the tickets too, not to interrupt you, but the problem with the ticket prices is not the artists. It's these damn people buying up all the tickets from Ticketmaster and whatever. You're buying their ticket from third party, from somebody that already owns it. They need to cut that out.
I have to admit, as I get older, my favorite musical moments now are not with the big boys anymore.
Right.
It's a band that I really love, or it's here in RB, or, it's something local, or sometimes now there are artists that I love who are way past their heyday and aren't they aren't the ones that can charge mega money. And so seeing them, even though they may be somewhat diminished or whatever, but just being in their presence and enjoying that moment with them. And I saw Chuck Berry in St. Louis because he in the last years of his life, he did one show a month at this particular club in St. Louis. That was all he did. So thankfully I had a friend who said, let's just do this. So we went, and he was not as good as he used to be.
Yeah.
He just wasn't, he'd start a song sometimes and it'd be the wrong key.
Yeah.
His son played in his band at that point. His son would say, Dad, we're in G or whatever, And he'd just laugh and he'd say, folks, I'm old. That's the way it is. And then he'd start playing right. And, there were those moments when the young Chuck Berry shone through, you could hear it.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. But we were with Chuck Berry, so who cares? We were with Chuck Berry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I find that's more precious to me now.
Yeah, I remember getting to see, I've seen this guy. I hadn't seen him in years and years, but at a Merle Haggard show over at Harris.
Yeah.
Over in Cherokee. And, his phrasing was a little different. He had to take breaths in different spots.
Right.
But
it was Merle Haggard.
Fucking Merle Haggard.
I know. Yeah, we saw him with Bob Dylan.
Right there on the wall. The working man.
We saw him with Bob Dylan, and that was one that I made my daughter go to. She didn't know who he was. But I said, no, you got to hear him.
What was your, what was your favorite concert?
There are just a lot that I have precious memories of. One that
stands out.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is I went to see, this is when I was a teenager still. A lot of them, I guess I would go back to then, that era. But I saw Leonard Skinner when Ronnie was still alive.
Oh, wow.
And that was just amazing. So the Atlanta Rhythm section opened.
Wow.
And they were really great. The world's ugliest rock and roll band, right? But they were so good. And Ted Nugent was the next up and didn't know his politics at the time. Yeah. He was just the wild man, and Cat Scratch Fever was out then and it was big. And he was crazy. I mean, jumping off amps while he, just in full throttle on his guitar. He was amazing. And we were packed in there. It was festival seating because that's what you did back then, right? So in the auditorium, you got there early so you could get to the door, and then you just run as hard as you could to the stage so you'd be close,
Yeah.
So we were all packed in there, and then Ted Nugent came on and said, I want everybody to step 2 steps forward. It's like, and we did, and it was like, ooh. And me and my friends always, we wanted to be at the stage. So by the time Leonard Skinner came on, we had worked our way up to here's the stage, here we are. And I'm looking up like this at Ronnie Van Zant. It was amazing. And then, of course, as battered as Freebird is at this point, when those 3 guys got up there and started doing their guitars, and their guitars were coming down like this.
Yeah.
It was an amazing concert moment.
Yeah. I don't necessarily get upset that they want to hear that song. It's just the fact that I'm one guy and a guitar, an acoustic guitar at that, and you're wanting to hear.
Well, it's overplayed. There's no question it's overplayed.
Yeah.
But classic rock radio was probably not a friend to that. But
there's so many Skinner tunes that are so much better in so many ways. That you'll never hear on classic rock radio.
Right. Oh, yeah. And Ronnie was an incredible writer.
Yeah.
He was an incredible writer. And people talk about what would this artist or that artist have done if they had lived, Jimi Hendrix being one great example. But I would have loved to see what Ronnie did as he got older.
Yeah.
So, he was a thinker.
Yeah.
And I love smart music.
And a different thinker.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't from that. All of his fan base was that.
Right.
He wasn't that.
He was different.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that would be one that just stands out at me. Yeah. What about you? What would you say?
Man, those Bonnery shows were really good, but probably the one that made the biggest, like what you said, was a Don Williams concert.
Oh, I love Don Williams.
And he came out, he had his guitar, his band warmed the crowd up. They played his little intro, just like Haggard did, just like all the old guys did.
Right.
Remember that? Yeah. Haggard always come out to that one song. But he walked out. He had a cup of coffee. He had his guitar on his back. And he come out and he set his coffee down on the table, sat down in a high back stool, and took a pack of cigarettes out of his pocket, set them on the stool with the coffee and the ashtray, and said, my name's Don Williams. I usually don't have a lot to say, and I don't guess tonight's going to be much different.
That's awesome.
There he goes. Right into the hits.
Right.
And from the first chorus of the first song, he never sang a chorus. The entire auditorium sang the chorus of every song he played.
What year would that have been?
That would have probably been, let's see, probably around 2000, probably around like 2005, 2006, somewhere around in there.
I had a close encounter of the Don kind with him.
It was amazing.
He came into the department store I worked in when I was like 18 or so, 20 maybe, and bought a pair of boots.
Oh, wow.
And it was my first experience of like, oh, there's really nothing to say to somebody like that. Okay. Yeah. It's like, I wanted to say something. I wanted to like be the cool guy. It's like, hey, I know who you are. You know, he had that hat, you know, that was so distinctive.
Yeah.
And I walked away and didn't say anything, but it was still cool to see him there.
Yeah. It was
he's amazing.
It was the neatest thing I'd ever been a part of, because it was just like, it was every chorus, and he'd just sit back.
Right.
And smile and just look around.
Right.
At all the people singing his songs.
How gratifying must that be, right?
Oh.
I mean, to have that many people know your music.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. What's yours?
I was thinking about it. I got to see Haggard 4 times. But 2015 at the Tennessee Theater, which was late, it was October 14th, 2015. And he died the following spring, right?
Wow.
That, and I saw Dr. John at the Tennessee Theater.
Oh, that's a good one.
And he had Kev Moe open for him, and Charlie Musselwhite was there.
Wow.
I didn't play for a week after that. I was like, I'm never going to be that good. So,
well, yeah, who is?
And he's got 9 fingers too.
Yeah.
He started playing piano because he cut his finger off, and it was easier than because he was a guitar player.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right. He was like a session guitar player before that happened, I think.
Yeah. And then those 2, I got to see Charlie Daniels' band one time. Got to see Dolly.
Charlie put on a hell of a show.
Oh, God, man. His band's good too, boy.
And he kept them together for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Same guys employed, you know. I mean, that's
something.
Pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, I saw George Jones at his last show in Knoxville.
Knoxville. Yeah. I heard he had to sit in a chair.
He was in agony. You know, if you've ever been around anybody or if you've had back trouble, he'd try sitting on the stool. He'd try standing. He'd try sitting in a chair. He tried everything. And nothing helps. And, his voice wasn't as good as it, used to be, but then there would be that verse or that whatever where there it would be again, there was that voice. But it was powerful. It was so moving.
Yeah.
When he sang He Stopped Loving Her Today, which was the end encore song. And here's this old man who's lived so much and, is suffering right now for you.
Right.
Because he kept saying, I'm known for not showing up and I was going to be here tonight, And God, he was dead within a week or so.
Yeah, it might have been his last show.
It was his last show. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. That was the last show. No, I wrote an article about it because he had some other shows after that scheduled, but he canceled them because he was in such agony.
Yeah.
And then he died like a week or something like that.
I didn't realize that.
I got to open for him one time.
Oh, wow.
That was back when that was in 97.
Okay.
At the Civic Auditorium. And, he was still kicking it then,
Right.
He was.
I might have been at that show actually because I saw him twice.
Yeah, I saw him like
both times there.
3 or 4 times, but I saw him most of the time at the Coliseum.
Right. So that was at the auditorium?
That was at the auditorium.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. And, he was special, man. His bass player was with him for years and years and years and years, and he sounded just like him. So a lot of times he would lay off the high notes and the bass player sing the lead.
Right.
So most people wouldn't have caught that, but I was watching him.
Right.
Faith Hill opened for him one time. I saw her back when she had curly hair and, wearing mom jeans, kind of Faith Hill.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Saw Kenny Chesney the day that he released his first record, which was the one that had Whatever It Takes on it. I think that was the album name too. He came down to Cats Records on Kingston Pike.
Wow.
Joey's pickup truck, and sat on the top of the cab and did the whole record. And he was right here. His boot was right there. I mean, it's Kenny Chesney, but at that point, it was a big deal to us.
That's a big deal, yeah.
So
I got to take Hannah to see Loretta Lynn at the Tennessee.
Oh man,
one time, and that was
awesome.
Pretty fantastic.
I never got to see Loretta.
She sat, but she was full of piss and vinegar. I mean,
she was. You talk about a songwriter too.
Yeah,
we're talking about songwriters. Loretta could write,
and and topical. And
the Pill
things going
in the
on.
60s.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a revolutionary song.
They wouldn't play it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
she was bad.
Yeah. She was a real treat. She came out and she did a few songs off the new stuff and a few off that album she did with Jack White.
I loved that album.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
And then she's like, Lord, my back's killing me, and I just bring me a chair out here, and she sat down and then she just like, what do y'all want to hear? She just started taking requests.
Wow.
And did them all. I mean, and like I say, her wind was a little weaker and she had to take breaths at a little different spots of her phrasing, but she was still just as awesome as ever.
It's just great to be in the presence of greatness, and you just have to appreciate that you're breathing the same air as this human who has done so much to change their art.
Yeah.
There does come a down point. I saw B.B. King, not the last time he came to Knoxville, but the time before, and he clearly was having memory issues, and it was kind of painful to watch.
Yeah.
And then he came back again, and I did not go because I saw B.B. King when he was great.
Right.
I did not want to see what I knew had to be going on. And everybody I talked to said that was a really sad show to be at. So there is a point,
Yeah, for sure. Andy and I were playing one night. We hadn't been riding too awful long or playing too awful long together, and we heard that Wanda Jackson was coming to.
She played the Old City, didn't she?
Yeah,
someplace in the Old City.
Yeah, and I opened that show for her.
Wow, I wish I'd gone to that. I don't know why I didn't go to that.
It was just me and Andy.
That's awesome.
2 guitars.
What was she like?
We knew like 6 songs. We didn't have any more than that. But we did what we knew, what we could do. And well, she was great. First of all, she sounded great. She performed great. She's about that tall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's a little bitty thing. And, but what was funny was, I guess she was like a lot of the old timers back in that day. They never traveled with a band. The promoter had her a band waiting.
That's what Chuck Berry did. Brought his piano player only.
So she showed up, and the band had already loaded in, and she came in. And we watched her warm the band up.
Wow.
And get their show together because we, obviously we're loaded in. We're there 4 or 5 hours before the deal.
Uh-huh.
And she said, I can't remember what it was. It was, I can't remember what song it was. But anyway, she kicked so-and-so song off, and it was a drum kickoff. And the drummer played, and everybody came in at the right time. She was like, no, that's not it. She's like, hit the stripper beat. And he was like, huh? She was like, oh, hell, you're so young, you probably ain't even been inside of a burlesque club or a strip joint. She's like, da-na-na-na-na. The beat, the stripper beat. And he was like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's fun.
But yeah, so while we were waiting to play, we were backstage around her, and I spoke to her and told her what a pleasure it was to be there and to be opening the show and whatever else I said. I probably stumbled all over myself, and we just started talking like 2 old buddies, and nothing about the past or career, but just talking,
right? Just
having a conversation. Well, by the end of the night, during that time we were talking, she had her boyfriend who was with her, driving her. He brought us a bottle of wine, and we drank a whole bottle of wine together backstage.
Fun.
Got done playing the show. She got done with her part. We're all loading out at the end of the night. She's carrying her guitar, I said, why not let me get that for you? Because she wouldn't let me call her Miss Jackson, first of all.
Right.
And she said, you're just about the sweetest fella. You're one of the sweetest fellas I've met in a long, long time. It's just been so nice. And she said, and the load-in at that place was down the back steps. It was the old Hoorays,
right?
Basically, but you had to load in from the back. So I carried her guitar down, her and her boyfriend. He's as old as she was, And she said, "Come back here a minute. I want to give you something." And we walked to the back of the car, and she opened the trunk. I put her guitar in. She reached in there and turned around and handed me a 45 record. And it was her new single from the album that Jack White produced with her.
Okay.
Shaking All Over.
Uh-huh.
And I still got it here somewhere. I got the 45.
Nice.
No, I don't. It's in the jukebox.
She signed it?
No, she just gave it to me, and
but she gave it to you.
Yeah,
so that's
and
all that matters.
And I told her the little story. I said, "Well, I've got a friend who has got a couple of jukeboxes, and I didn't have one at the time." And I said, "Could I get one for him?" I said, "And I promise you it'll never come out of our jukeboxes." And she gave me another one.
Sweet.
I forgot all about that. But so just little things like that, I wouldn't have got to do that any other time or any other place if I hadn't have just been, I didn't even want the gig,
You only knew 6 songs.
Well, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like we had 18 minutes worth of material and I'm up there going on with some kind of hillbilly bullshit I'm spouting out, to cover 25 minutes, for a legend.
Right. Ella Garou's was a great place to be able to meet people as well. I met John Lee Hooker there and Odetta. I don't know if you know who Odetta is. She was a folk singer. I had her first album in great shape, and I thought she was going to cry when I handed her that album. Said, I love this album. Would you sign it? And she signed it. But I had a great conversation with Roger McGuinn of the Byrds. Talked on and on. He was friendliest guy ever.
Really?
Easy to talk to. And like you said, we didn't talk about, when you were with the Byrds, it was just more.
Yeah, no, this was just
what was happening or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, have you got anything big in the works for the website and
really
stuff?
No. Yeah. To be honest, I'm the most boring person you can talk to because everything that I know about anything, I've already written about it, and you've read it. Anybody who reads the website reads it. No, I think I'm pretty content. I guess I'm kind of past the point of building an empire. I'm like when you're a young man, say, we could do this and it'd be bigger and bigger. Yeah. Now I just feel like I'm happy with the service that I hope I provide. Just letting people know what's happening and. About the place that we all hopefully love and, warts and all. And, I just enjoy that. It's been the most phenomenal thing probably that ever happened to me outside of my wife who may be listening. And I would say,
we love you, honey.
That was the best thing. But outside of that, and my daughter, no, it's really, we talked about earlier people that you meet that change your life. Well, if I could talk about a collective, I would say all these people, these incredibly creative people, whether they're musicians or other kinds of artists or they're entrepreneurs, they're people with just ideas. Meeting all those keeps me from being a morose old man, and like thinking, well, it's all just going to hell, because it's not. There are awesome, creative millennials out there who are doing amazing things and are good humans.
Yeah.
So it's been a great reminder for me that there's a lot of good out there, and I need that.
It's very easily forgotten.
It is,
with especially with the narrative that most of the world wants you to buy into and or follow. That there's zombies and werewolves and monsters lurking around every corner.
Right.
When in fact, when you're well traveled and you've visited multicultures and you find so much more good.
There's so many great people in the world.
So many good people. Yeah.
If sometimes the leaders and the bad people would just get out of the way and let the rest of the people at it.
Yeah.
This could be a great place.
Yeah.
But Knoxville's full of good people.
Yeah.
And that's been probably my biggest takeaway from this last 14 years.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful. Like you were talking about with Wanda Jackson, I'd have never known you guys.
Yeah.
I'd have never known so many people that I know that I now count as really good friends.
Well, and that comes from this person. And then it comes from that person knowing this person. And
exactly.
Then, all the way back to, like all those years we read Wayne's column.
That's right.
It's very, very layered.
Yep.
Well, man, we've been going at it a couple hours here, but
I didn't think I had that much to say. You guys are good. Talented.
We always tell everybody that we just talk about whatever we want to, and we'll let it lead wherever it wants to go. And
I'm just glad you didn't
need safe
ask me
words,
to name my all-time favorite NBA All-Stars. I'd have been dead in the water.
Boy, if I'd have known, I'd have mighted
too late
you.
now.
I'd have mighted you.
So next time. No, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Well, it's been our pleasure as well. And again, tell them about the website. Tell them where to go.
InsideOfKnoxville.com. It's all over Facebook and Instagram and whatever, but InsideOfKnoxville.com. And it's pretty much an article a day that tells what's happening in Knoxville.
Very good. Our guest, Alan Sims. Thank you, Alan. We always close out with saying that, anybody can be an asshole. It doesn't take any kind of special person to do that. So work not to be one. And remember, it costs nothing to be kind. And it costs nothing to be kind to folks, and that there's always a price to be paid for cruelty. So you heard it here first. Alan, Jamie, you want to do another one?
Oh, yeah.
One more for the good guys. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
You either is or you ain't. You do or you don't. You can or you can't. Or you will or you won't. Either way, baby, a good man, well, he's hard to find.